Pepinos. Hello, guys. Welcome to OIC free lectures. Sorry about our delay. We had some technical issues. I'm Juliana Remédios. I'm a consensio therapist here in Foz do Iguaçu, Brazil. And with me today, transmitting this speech is Álvares Dantas. So, today we're going to talk about how to overcome guilt. And why exactly this subject? Well, actually, that's pretty personal to me. As far as I can remember, I felt a lot of guilt. I remember when I was a child, one of most common feelings that I had at that time was guilt. And I remember that for a while, I couldn't even point it out why I was feeling guilt or exactly what happened that caused that to me. But the guilt was always there. It was a constant. And then when I grew up, I realized that was something pretty common on my family and the way that we act. And then later, I started my studies as a doctor and my graduation and as a doctor, and really challenging situations came, and I had to went through a lot of challenges, I can say, and the guilt was always there, was there also, and that really started to bothers me at that point because I saw that guilt really consumed me and really interfered on my performance as a doctor or as a and in my general relationships in a daily basis. So I started to research that, and after in 2004, 2003, I guess, when I found conscienciology, I deepened these studies, and what I'm going to talk to you today, it's about my personal research, also my research as a consensio therapist, and well, that's a little introduction to you understand why the subject is important and personal to me, but let's start then. So, first of all, I want to say that OIC is a consensio institution, a non-profit institution. We are based in volunteering, and is a scientific or parascientific and apolitical institution. It's based here in Foz do Iguaçu, but nowadays actually we have branches in Rio de Janeiro and also São Paulo. There are big cities here in Brazil. If you want to visit us, you can go there also. And the main point about OIC is research, clarification, and dissemination of our specialty, that is consensio therapy. There is the treatment of the consciousness in a whole way, not just the body, not just the mind, but seeing the conscious as a whole, and promoting consciential health, and was founded in 2003. So that's just a little information about OIC. What are you going to see in this class today? Well, I have some key points. What is guilt? I want to share with you some ideas that I think that are important to overcome guilt. What is important to know about guilt to overcome it. And how does guilt affect us? And if there is some kind of purpose or utility about feeling guilt. And the most important topic, actually, that I hope that we will spend a lot of time, the most of time, is self-consensio therapy, or how I treat myself, I diagnose myself and treat myself related in in the side of guilt. Okay, how to overcome guilt by self-conscientiously. Okay, so first of all, what is guilt? Oh, so yeah, I must say that if you have any questions during the session, you can send through Alvarez by the chat, Alvarez, yeah, and then uh, he will pass to me. So what is guilt? First of all, guilt is an emotion. I think everybody can understand that. And what is emotion? Well, somehow emotion is just a reaction that we have. If, especially the basic emotions are reactions. Okay, maybe something even like automatic that you don't really think about it. And there are the complex emotions that sometimes we call it feelings too, especially in conscientiology. We have this nomenclature. And complex emotions are more elaborate. They are a bunch of emotions together, more than two, and also have some kind of cognitive component or idea. Okay, so let's see that more deeply, more detailed. So, first of all, we have two different patterns that in our brain that where the emotions are important. First of all is the fast circuit that is related with the basic emotions, and in that set, it's where we can find like emotions like sadness, happiness, fear, anger. What is it? Here, the emotion is really a reaction. You have something that, for example, scared you. You have an automatic reaction. It's intense. You don't think about it. It's strong and it's short-durated and has his own biological fingerprint. What is that? Maybe your pupils will dilate, your blood flow will change, to provide you with tools to survive. So those basic emotions goes through in your brain or your body by this fast circuit, and it's made to help you to survive. So it's something that was developed many years ago by our ancestors, really, and that was they were exposed to ecological challenges, and then they start to react in a certain way to survive. So maybe you think, okay, but nowadays the threats that they challenge me are not like are not like surviving threats, maybe. But the thing is that there are a lot of studies showing that these automatic and instantaneous and intense and reactions are hardwired in your brain. So maybe you didn't think that that's something that triggered it was enough to such a it started out of measure reaction from you, but that's how it works. And that happens because when you have something that makes you scared with fear, your rational brain, it's disabled. It's something that we call amygdala hijack. So the information comes here from the hypothalamus to amygdala, that is a part of the brain, and then the amygdala, it's always looking for threats. It's a primitive part of our brain, actually. And if amygdala detects that it's something that it's threatening you, dangerous, so your higher cortex that is responsible for your decision making, thinking, your personality will be disabled. And then these automatic fight, fly, or run reactions will come. That's one part of the basic emotions. But then here is the prefrontal cortex and the amygdalas, right? That we're talking about. But that is just part of the emotion problem. Actually, as we talked before, the basic emotions are 6 or 8, depending on the author that is studied. Anger, disgust, fear, more basic emotions. But guilt is not a basic emotion. So that's the second part that I want to share with you, that I want you to understand. What is a complex emotion, as we talked before? Is emotion that is made for at least 2 other basic or other emotions, like blocks really, and also sometimes has some kind of idea or concept inside, because evolves our thinking brain, not just emotion or reaction, immediately reaction brain. It involves our slow emotional circuit of brain. That is a rational emotion part of a brain. It's this circuit, this emotional circuit is slower. Emotions are evoked by thoughts, and it's more specific. So, for example, guilt sometimes is represented as a mix of regret, anger, shame, and fear. Okay? And so maybe when you feel guilt, you regret more, and your regret is bigger than the anger feeling, and the fear is small. And also there are different kinds of fears in guilt. For example, fear of rejection, fear of the consequences of what you did, shame about yourself, shame about public exposition, anger about yourself or others or the circumstance maybe. So that's a representation of guilt. I think that helps you to understand what is a complex emotion. But also, as we talk about these complex emotions or feelings, they have a cognitive component on idea. In guilt, that idea is related basically with the idea of doing something wrong, or a mistake, or an error. That's why some authors call it a moral emotion. Why is that? Because feeling guilty or feeling guilt is related to your position in the society and in your relationships. For example, here we have us, the consciousness, and outside we have our environment. Okay? There are society rules, limits, agreements, laws, contracts, commitments that we make with other people, and society principles and conventions. So when you feel guilt, sometimes you feel guilt related to this environment, or I made something that I consider immoral, or I broke a principle, or I broke a convention, or I broke some law. I made a mistake, and then I'm considered guilt from others, from outside. But also I can feel guilt about that. So there is always this idea of a mistake, something that you did wrong. But also there is not just the outside. There are your own principles, morals, maybe your personal code of ethic or cosmoethic, your own rules. And when you break them, even when it's just inside your mind, you can feel guilt. Even if nobody else knows about that, you can feel guilt because you consider that you made a mistake. So let's get these ideas together. Guilt is a negative emotion because it's painful. It's a bad emotion. It's a bad feeling, right? And it's centered in the idea that you made a mistake or an error. You did something wrong. Has to do with our relationships and your role in society. And many times involve others. And has to do also with a sense of self-criticism. To feel guilty, you must be able to criticize yourself, right? And that has to do with the personal cosmetics also. And another idea that is important about guilt is that it is a negative self-evaluation or assessment, because the person usually feels unworthy, undignified, and feel less about themselves. Well, one thing that so far we understand that guilt is an emotion, a complex emotion, a mix or at least 4 other emotions: fear, anger, regret, shame, and that a bad feeling. And one thing that we understand now in science is that I think it's important to bring it up here, is that actually what you feel affects our bodies, because there is a connection between our brain and our other systems. So here there is just an illustrative picture, that explain about the connections of the brain and the other organs, especially like the adrenal. Everybody, I think, heard about the adrenal system and the stress hormones and how the stress affects our body. Well, the main idea that I want to talk about is this. It's because nowadays we know that if you have continuous bad emotions, if you feel that continuously, that will affect this system that was supposed to work really fast, as we saw, and the stress will be continuous, and the good stress will end and will start a bad stress. And that leads to an idea that is pretty important, is that the bad emotions are bad to you, it's bad to your body, and actually can harm your health. And when I'm talking about that, it's just about the somatic, the physic data, but in conscienciology, that actually is our point here, we can bring those ideas we can amplify this concept. So it can harm your mental soma, your psychosoma, your energies. We'll see more about that. I will just answer one question here. Please, Elvis, help me here. Oh, Sandra. Hello, Sandra. Thank you for your question. Is asking the difference between guilty or feeling guilty and victimism. Oh, actually, we're going to talk a little about that in the next slides, but I think the victimization syndrome, or the person that victimized herself or themselves, it's a more complex diagnosis, and guilt is part of that. Okay? But we are going to talk more about that. Please ask me if it's not clear at the end. Here, I don't want you guys go through all this information. It's just to show really how busy this slide is, how many influence the stress and the prolonged stress and the connections of the brain that can be started by the emotions, really can cause repercussions in lungs and heart, and even in your eyes, as we told. So it's what I want to show it here. It's how your emotions can really affect your body. Here it's another slide that is pretty interesting. Let me just show you that. Here we have the good stress, and the bad stress is, as I told you, for example, when you have a big problem and you are feeling bad about yourself for long, and those bad emotions keep coming, then we go through a distress phase of the stress that is pretty bad for your health. And here we have some consequence about that. For example, high blood pressure, weaken your immune system. That's one of the main reasons bad emotions are bad for our health. I think it's an interesting point. Well, again, I don't want to go through all that. I just want to show you how those connections are important, and even for your muscles and your sleeping routine and everything like that. Well, and before we start, we get into the purpose of guilt. I want to talk a little more about the repercussions in psychosoma and soma and mental soma. So one thing that is important, well, let's start with the psychosoma. Of course, if you have high charged emotions or prolonged guilt, like you are feeling guilt for, I don't know, 1 day, 1 month. Sometimes situations of people that feel guilt almost all the time, as I told you about my story before, or have a really bad incident and that really traumatized them, and they keep like thinking bad about themselves and think that they were guilt. So how long does guilt can last? There is no limits, really. And one thing that I learned here in conscienciotherapy is that when you don't address a problem, the time won't heal. The time won't cure. The time will pass by, but that will stay. And why is that? Because when you have bad feelings, one hypothesis involved the energosoma is that because you evolve blockage or energetic disturbances that are attached to that bad feelings, right? So then you have the bad feelings. Because of that, I can't think straight. Actually, the emotional, very highly charged emotional state is it's a way of reduce our discernment. So you can think straight. Your mind is full of thoughts like, I should have done, why I did that, what will happen when someone discovered, or when everybody know about that. And your energetic body is also messed up, because if you can think straight, you can feel straight, and you're feeling these really charged bad emotions. Of course, your energetic body will be affected too. So there is not something that is just somatic. It affects all your bodies. But then you ask me, Juliana, is there a purpose of feeling guilt? Because why do you feel guilt? Actually, there are a lot of authors and researchers that that argument that guilt could be good for you. So I brought here some arguments so you can discuss that. Well, the main argument is that, for example, there is no inutility in nature. What that means, if it's something natural, feel guilt, must have a reason. There is no inutility in everything in nature. So that's a point. And that brings us back to the beginning of our class. The emotions are the best response found by nature or by our ancestors, maybe, to situations. So maybe there is some utility to feel guilt because of that. And also there is a sociological argument that guilt is good because it can regulate your behavior. If you feel guilt, maybe you change and maybe you behave better, and that will be better for the society. And also one thing that I have been seeing a lot lately is that when you feel a little guilt, it's not that bad, and if you feel a lot of guilt, then it's bad for your health. That is an argument that a lot of researchers have nowadays. But then there are the arguments that are against guilt, that is not good for your health at all, and you can actually be free of guilt. So most of all, that is a really important argument that I see, that a really important point that I see that is true in my story and my experience, is that guilt doesn't really inspire change. You don't change because you feel guilt. I can, at least in my experience, that how it works. You feel bad about self, you feel more stuck and paralyzed than really with this energy of change and recycling. Oh, I'm feeling guilty, so I will change. No, probably not. Probably you'll be paralyzed, beating yourself. Also, one big problem that I see in guilt is that it's focusing on the past, what happened, or in the future, what the terrible things that will come, the consequences of my error or my bad act. So if it's not focusing on the present day, it don't really helps to change, because you can only change your current situation. You can only change the present. Another problem is that it's focused not in solutions but in the problem itself. So it's like when you feel guilt, I don't know if you feel like that, but at least it's how I feel, is that I'm stuck in problem and I keep repeating that problem and revising, but not with a solution perspective. Focus on the losses and your own incapacity, actually. You feel bad about yourself. Why I did that again? Why I didn't do that differently this time? Why? And here actually is the Sandra's question, the self-victimization. So self-victimization can be defined as feeling sorry about myself or for myself. So guilt has this feeling, right? When I feel guilty, actually I'm putting myself in a victim position, right, Sandra? It's like when I just gave up all the power and keep beating myself. So that's something that has a posture that has to do with feeling guilt. And also a thing that that is really important, I think it's really important to stress her out, is that when you feel, it's a egoic state of mind. When you feel guilt, you don't think, oh, I will change things and making change and help others. No, you're like beating yourself and close it in your own mind, thinking about yourself and your performance and what you did wrong and the consequence. But in the end, it's just like thinking about yourself. There is really little empathy toward the others, even the ones that you harmed somehow. And because of that, because you keep inflicting yourself these bad feelings and thoughts, is considered in conscienciology a self-intrusion. And being a self-intrusion will lead us to a hetero-intrusion, or somehow when you feel guilt, you keep thinking about those ideas, those thoughts, those regret thoughts, the fear, the bad feelings, and that connects you with consciousness, extraphysical consciousness, consciex, that have the same pattern, right? So they are consciex that maybe are angry with you because of mistake and are there to punish you, or they feel the same, they feel guilt too. And as we already talked at the beginning, can lead to disorder is in all your body. So that's why I want to bring here the hypothesis that guilt is pretty, is not really useful. And I think that you can change your minds to live free from guilt. Actually, one thing that this was one of the biggest changes that I made since I arrived in conscienciology, and that one of the things, the main points that I had to bring to you here, that why I decided to give this speech, because I was a person that had a lot of guilt, and I made changes. I will show you how. I will show you what I did, and nowadays I can deal with guilt and be free of guilt in many situations. I really can. So that's something that is possible. I did. I'm not saying that I don't have guilt at all. It's something that I am still overcoming, but it was something that really changed my quality of thinking, my sanity, and actually my quality of life. So I think it's something that is really important. So here there are some pictures that you can see the self, the guilt face, or situations where you can feel the guilt. Actually, it's pretty interesting, you know. You see here that all the ones here, even the dog, is with the head down and low eyes, and this posture that you see your back hanging. And actually there were studies showing that one thing that characterizes guilt for people is feeling a heavy weight on their backs. And that's something that I read recently, I think like a couple of years ago. But when I was doing my change here, when I found here start to study conscienciology at 2003, 2004, I remember that I started to make changes to overcome guilt. And I remember that at some point I made a course. It's called ACP2. It's an energetic field course. I don't know if you know it, but it's a very intense energetic course. I recommend to all of you. And my main reason in that course was overcome guilt. And I remember that I went through the intrusion, one of the main aspects of this course is help you to make your own decision, or think better and think straight and be more lucid. And when I went out the course in the last day, the course lasts like 2 or 3 days, I felt that I could walk straighter, and I felt that really a heavy weight took off my back. So it's nowadays that I see this kind of research that say that people feel that weight on their back. I related to that experience that I had, that I really felt something being lifted on my shoulders. So it was interesting to me. Sorry, wait a minute. What? Oh, sorry. The name in English of the course is Advanced 2. Is that right? Okay. So here we have more something else that I want to share with you that helped me a lot. Actually, this description here is based on my self experience, and then I researched this hypothesis and researched this evolution in other people, observing other people. First of all, it's in the first one here on the left is the normal person, and you can see his psychosphere is good and clear, and then you start to think bad things about yourself. For example, here it could be anything, but here we are talking about guilt. So the person just starts with these pathotoxins about guilt. Oh, I did something wrong. That's terrible. How could I did again? I made the same mistakes. Things like that. And then you can see that the psychosphere it's shorter, it's smaller. And then when it goes through in the end, you see the person with a very small psychosphere. It's very closed, okay, very dense also, with a lot of intruders around. It's a phenomenon, it's called self-encapsulation. Because one thing that guilt, really bad guilt, can do, it's a monoideism. It's when you have a thought or toxin that doesn't go away. You keep thinking about that all day long or all night long sometimes. So I want to share to you the process, what happens by this energetic perspective is that you are encapsulating yourself with the intruders. And you are the bigger intruder yourself, right? Because you're responsible by this phenomenon. So your energies get denser, blockades appear, you close yourself in that bad atmosphere, and you are surrounded by intruders that are sucking your energies. Okay? Well, let's go ahead. Well, that's the most important part of the class, right? It's how to overcome guilt. I will say how I do actually in a daily basis. And I actually share that with a lot of people in different situations, and I can see that it doesn't work just for me. I saw that work with others too, so I want to share with you because of that. First of all, in self-conscientiously you have four phases. Self-investigation, self-diagnosis that can be put together. And the second part is actually the most important part, is self-facing or self-confronting and self-overcome the problem. You can do self-conscientiously with any problem, with guilt or any other bad feeling or any other trait that you want to overcome or improve. So it's a method or a technique that is pretty important to self-development. Anyway, here we will start with self-investigation and self-diagnosis. What's that? I want you to start to ask questions to yourself, think about yourself, to characterize and diagnose what kind of guilt do you have. Okay? So I will do some questions here. We'll start by investigating what do you know about your guilt. First of all, you should ask, do you feel guilt? Do you know when you are feeling guilt? I know that seems stupid to ask that, but believe me, you can see that maybe you know people that have a hard time identifying their feelings. What I'm feeling, I feel that it's something bad, but have a hard time giving names to it. So that's the first question for for those people. How do you describe your guilt? What are the components? So here we had this schematic view of guilt. How is your guilt? You have more regret, the feeling that you should, or the idea that you shouldn't have done something, or you are more anger about yourself and others and the situation and all stuff, or you feel more shame. What do you feel shame about? Or you feel more fear? And then I will ask you, what kind of fear is that? Is fear about public exposition of your mistakes? Is fear of being rejected? Is fear of maybe the consequences? Or there are a lot of fears that you can see here. So that's something that I want you to think about. And then the other question that is really important is that what situations trigger it? At first I thought that, well, I feel guilt most of the time. There is always this guilty, can I say, like a cloud, a guilt cloud above my head when I was a child. And then I thought, I think everything makes me feel guilt, really. But then I started to write down, and I discovered that it was not like that. Actually, there were 2 or 3 very specific situations that triggered my guilt feelings. It was specifically, most of the time, related to harming other people and being rejected by them, or be considered less competent, for example, or a worse person. Okay? So what situation triggered it? Or you can think about, for example, your relationships. You feel more guilt in your working relationships, in your family relationships. How it is? Why do you feel guilt about this situation specifically? What is the idea? What are your traits linked to guilt? That I will show you another slide, then we can discuss this further. And the most important thing that was really the turning point to me was that I discovered that guilt was not the appropriate emotional response for that situation. I felt guilt about most of things, but I didn't really have a reason to. So maybe I had learned to respond to that situation, react to that situation with guilt, but it was not the most appropriate response, not even for me, not to others too that were involved. So I ask you that, is it guilty the best response to that situation that you are living? And some traits that can be related to guilt. Well, one thing that it's really important is pride, and also pride and vanity. That it's hard to separate them here. sometimes you are so proud that it's hard to admit that you did something wrong. That leads us to perfectionism. That was something that in my case, it was a diagnosis that I had. I had really out of reality, above of the expectation, the reasonable lines, expectations about myself, and about the others too, actually. And nowadays I saw that it was like really the perfectionism was like a cage. I was really closed in that state of mind that I couldn't make mistakes, couldn't do something wrong, and everything had to be perfect. And of course, when you are dealing with things like this reality, or even me in the medicine field, that's not really possible. So the perfectionism is a condition when you are reaching something that is unreachable, and because of that, you are doomed to suffer and to be always unsatisfied with yourself. So there is a lot of guilt involved. Also, if you have affective or emotional or energetic lack, if you have an emotional or energetic deficiency, sometimes you want to feel guilt to promote the gain of these energies or compassion or feeling from others. Guilt is really used for emotional manipulation, making people feel guilt. Okay? Actually, that is quite of fun because when I was a child, in my relationship with my mother, there was a lot of that. She was a psychotherapist and she was excellent. But when you deal with your daily basis relationships, so sometimes it's not that good, at first at least. And there was a lot of guilt, and I was always reacting, feeling guilt to her behavior. And also, I think she had a problem with guilt herself. And at some point, I bought her. I don't know if you know this book, guy. Is the Jewish Mother Manual. It's a book that it's actually it's a joke. It's a comedy book at some point, but there is how the Jewish mothers or the mothers in general uh, use to manipulate you, and there is a lot of guilt involved, so it's kind of fun. And masochist, the person that wants to feel bad about themselves. Pessimism, because when you are feeling guilt, you don't think bright things will come or anything like that. You are only seeing, like you said before, the bad side, the problems, the losses. And also that's something that is really related with guilt. It's a low self-esteem because you feel an orphan. You feel that you were not good enough. There are a lot of other traits that you can list here, but of course it's just a little sample. And then you say to me, okay, but why people feel guilt or stay in guilt, don't want to change, don't do that change? Maybe it's because they have false gains or pseudo gains or secondary gains. They are gaining something from keep the guilt or feeling guilt. For example, when you keep yourself feeling guilt, you can escape your responsibilities. You just keep yourself in that state that is not a changing, promoting state. It's more like feeling guilt, stuck on that. Another thing is that the person is still feeling bad or sorry about themselves. So they are still pitying themselves in that movement. They like attention from others. Oh, someone, right? Put the hand on your head and, oh, so poor of yourself, and things like that. Commiseration, receiving commiseration from the others. And the other thing is that when you blame so hard yourself, you think that there is this trick thought sometimes that the others don't need to charge you, to punish you, because you are already punishing yourself somehow. And some people that take pleasure in suffering. That's related with the barotrosphere for sure. One idea that I want to point it out here is that I had this thought, this conviction, this belief, is that when someone make a mistake, they must suffer. Can be myself or the others. That is a really bad a really bad charter, a really bad thought that is related to guilt. And sometimes even it's more like subtle. And for example, I give you an example. Someone came to you to ask to apologize, and then the person is okay, is feeling good, is smiling. Some people will say, oh no, you don't really regret. You are not feeling bad. I don't see you suffer. I don't see you suffering, signs of suffering. So that's something that you should think about it. You are stuck on this idea that when you do a mistake, you must suffer. The suffer is not necessary, really, right? Why you want to have, what is more important is the change behavior, or the change of the way you're thinking, or your sanity. Another point is that I had a really hard time when I admitting that I made a mistake, and guilt helps me because it's a way of punish myself. And of course, there is also this Avenger syndrome or Punisher syndrome, as you wish. There is a syndrome where the person has this hardwired idea on her brain that she's always looking for the victim or the perpetrator. She's always putting herself in one of these positions. Or someone is taking advantage of me, or and I'm the victim, or I'm victimizing others. Okay. Okay. And also here we will see also the self-confronting part of it. Well, first of all, you should experience the conscienciology, the consciential paradigm, because the consciential paradigm is a scientific paradigm. What does that mean? It means that you should try, you should make mistakes, you commit errors in order to learn. So errors are necessary and they are part of the process. So if the mistakes are a bad thing to you, so you are not really experience the consciential paradigm full, okay? And you should understand that a mistake is just an opportunity to learn. So the error is inevitable. It only means that you need to change your strategy or doing something. And that's all. It's just that. And how do we deal with the errors in a cosmoethical way? Well, there are 4 steps. First of all, you should admit that you made a mistake. Don't waste time justifying yourself. Repair the error immediately. If there's something that you still can do it. Okay? Apologize with the person or the people involved. That's pretty important. And the most important part of it is that you should, instead of feeling guilt, you should put your energies and plan to avoid future repetition or doing the necessary recycling. Don't waste your time pitching yourself. Put your energy in changing. I like this quote a lot. It's the behavioral change is the only real apology. It's from Mel Robbins. It's a motivational. I think she works with self-confidence. You can find her online. And well, that's the main point. It's when you feel guilty, you are dealing with your errors in a bad way, in an anti-cosmoetical way, in a self-intruding way. So you need to change that doing these 4 things. I know that sounds simple and maybe it's not just that. No, it's just that. The main idea is that. Okay? Now I will present you other things that you should do to help you to overcome guilt. When the feelings of guilt shows up, remember that you're in charge of your thoughts. You are the one that in charge of what you think or feel. At beginning, I suggest you to just cut the guilt scenes. If they show up, just cut somehow. Do something else. Talk to someone else. Do something to change your mind. Work with your energies. And also, you should recall the facts that reinforce your ability to do with the situation. So, I'm able to do this because in the past I did that, and I have this capacity to deal with this situation. Go back to your past to research your own skills, the situations that you overcome that were similar. And if it doesn't help, ask for help. Don't close yourself in yourself. Don't close in yourself. Live in the present. That's a really important thing. As you saw, guilt is about regretting the past and see the bad things that will come. So you just only have this time, the present. Don't waste your time with useless prospects. Do what you can now. That's the most important thing. When these guilty thoughts start to come, you should say, okay, that was bad, was a mistake, but I can't do anything now. I did what I could, and now I will focus on the present. What I can do now. Maybe now I can do something to don't commit the same mistake. And one thing that really helped me is that when the guilt feelings show up, I thought with myself, okay, I did like that, but I'm not that person anymore. I changed. It's not fair to charge me. It's not fair with myself, charge me with something that I already changed. I was not that lucid. I didn't have these ideas. I was less developed. I don't know. I was a different person. A worse person than now. And now I do it differently. Okay? Position yourself from others, stand by others. That has something to do what you're talking about. I'm not that person anymore. I don't do that mistakes anymore. So it's over. Okay? Maybe to me, especially, was a public and also a multidimensional statement, positioning. And as you do that, at the same time, you should not be condescending with your mistakes. Okay, now doesn't matter because mistakes are okay. No, it's not like that too. You must compromise yourself to don't keep committing the same mistakes. Okay? That's the self-forgiveness technique. That's what it's about. You don't forgive yourself by new mistakes that you already know that is not good. So I know that something is bad, so I won't do it anymore. That's what is about the self-unforgiveness technique. Don't be condescending with your own mistakes. And de-dramatize. That was a pretty important phase to me. If you're a really dramatic person that exaggerates stuff and consequences and the size of the problem, it's a big problem, maybe you should think at that point when guilt comes, that when you're feeling guilt, that maybe you're exaggerating the problem and its consequences. And you can even remember your past. I exaggerated before. Yeah, I can remember a similar situation where I thought that the world was ending and then in the next day was nothing like that. So try to think that. That will help a lot. Remember that you're not still a Serenissimus, you're still developing, or maybe you are, I'm not sure. I'm not, but we don't know who is watching. So cut the tragic outlook, okay? Remember that when things are too dramatic and you are really, your tosanity is really charged on emotions, you can't think straight. So probably you're wrong. And that's a really important point. Get rid of your secrets. Because there is really no secrets at all because of the multidimensional aspect of us, and we are never alone, and you can have your thoughts only for, my thoughts are not only mine, they go away, right? So, but there is an important point. When you did something wrong that you think that is terrible, and there are people that hold that together for years, even decades, and don't talk to anyone, even their partners or family sometimes. They think that is a terrible secret, and the intruders use that secret to manipulate you. So you should get rid of your secrets. Somehow, in a way that won't harm you or others involved, you can get rid of your secrets. Okay, that's a really important point in some situations where people have guilt, and that leads to, if you don't do it, you'll be still on a leash, an intruder's leash. They will be controlling you because they hold that against you, you know. And the least, but not the last, the most important thing that I did actually, and I recommend you to start your experimentation, is that you should get out of this egoic state of mind that is guilt and start to really help the others. When I felt guilt at my past, I feel that, oh no, you know what? I'm feeling guilty because I harmed the others. I'm really worried about the others. And then when I start to really study this process, I realized that no, I was not really worried about them, the ones that I harmed. I was worried about my image, myself, my performance, my self-concept. So start to do something really for the others, maybe the ones that you harmed, or even everybody in general. So guilt is a selfish and intruding reaction. Focus on what you can do for those affected in a situation. Or maybe bigger than that, you can create projects, initiative, products like this one here, this speech, for example. When you can tell the others what you learn from your mistakes. You probably know a lot of stories about people that had a bad time, committed a mistake that really changed their lives, and they come up with something good from that. And one thing that I want to talk about is that you also should give up the culprit hunter state of mind or way of doing. You should abandon this posture of culprit hunt, because sometimes, okay, I forgive myself, I will do, I won't be guilty anymore, or I will be this better person with myself, but then you keep like making people feel guilt, or also trying to find someone to blame. That's something that is related with victimization syndrome or trait, and also with guilt. So I will ask you now, and you can think: are you a person that still make other people feel guilt? Are you happy when you do that? Oh, I did someone feeling guilt, so they will change because of that. Or are you still this kind of person that need the suffering from the others? That's something that you should think about it. Well, guys, one last thing that I want to say to you is that this quote is from Daiane dos Santos. Maybe you don't know her. He was a gymnastic. She performed in Olympics and everything. And once she was, I don't know which competition she was. It was a really really important competition, and everybody was expecting a big performance on her. And then she did a mistake that completely uh, uh, it was pretty bad for her. She didn't win, and people were really, really disappointed with her. And I remember that a reporter asked her, "Whoa, what happened?" And then she pretty calmly said, "Oh, I messed it up. It's something that happens." And at that point, I learned something from her. It was such a de-dramatized posture, so like cool and okay. And you know what? I make mistakes. So that's something that I try to have in my mind in daily in my interactions, is that I make mistakes, and that's it. No drama. No need of more drama. Okay? So, that's a little sample of what you have here about guilt, and it's such a big subject. I'm sorry if I put so much information, but it's such an exciting subject to me. I hope that I have had somehow help you to understand it more, or at least instigated your curiosity so you can research more. So we are now heading to the end of this presentation. I will let you, sorry, I will let you see the OIC contacts now. Okay? We here have conscienciotherapy in Brazil, as you know, and you deal with a lot of subjects. One of them is guilt, but everything else that you want to improve about yourself or deal with. So thank you very much about this opportunity and your time. See you soon.